so it's just coming on.
It's just coming on.
Yeah.
But we can hit the light to make it over there.
With the Star Chamber lights on.
Yeah.
It's easier to see with them.
I mean, there's a fair amount of text in here, but it's really the concepts that, first of all, I'd like to introduce Joan Holmes for those of you that don't know Joni. She's an elder and president of Boundary Aboriginal All Nations Council, Aboriginal Council, and she's also a Métis in terms of her heritage, and a very, very much appreciated member of our Aboriginal Education Advisory Council that we have here. And so Joni is just going to pipe in whenever she wants to, because we're giving you just a brief overview of where we're at with our renewal piece here, and it's not like we're developing it, we really are at the end stages here. This draft has gone several times to the Ministry, to the Aboriginal Education Branch, and you know, they have several lenses that go through in terms of other government regulatory committees to make sure that it's politically correct and different things like that. So, you know, we've done some tweaks and some development, and we really are very close to the point of signing this. So later on in the agenda, the board agenda, you'll see a motion asking for the board to adopt this in principle, because we did hear the date late yesterday afternoon for the signing. There will be the signing ceremony in Grand Forks on June 27th, and we'll definitely give you more information on that. That's assuming you adopt it in principle. And if there's a problem, Vicky's in trouble because she's the
Good heavens.
Anyway, anything else that you'd like to say, Joni, at this point?
No, okay.
So, I guess you can't really see this easily, but we're just showing you this because we decided this year, for the last couple of years, the advisory's been talking about how can we get deeper and have more meaning with the work that we do within the Aboriginal cultural understanding and view of things. And our past goals have been to make sure that our kids start to, you know, have some of those cultural experience, and that our Aboriginal students have a sense of pride of heritage and ancestry. For those of you that don't know, I think this year was 27% of our students have claimed Aboriginal ancestry. Roughly a third are Métis, a third are Cree, because Cree goes over a vast area, and a third are everything else, you know, in terms of First Nation, well, not First Nation, but Aboriginal. So Aboriginal includes Inuit, Métis, and all First Nation groups. So when we started looking at, then the other goals were achievement in reading and numeracy, based on the evidence that we had that those are the areas that our students with Aboriginal ancestry needed to improve, and our 6-year completion rate. And really, with many of the things that we were doing with the cultural and how we were trying to impact the achievement rates with things, we really recognized from a couple years ago when Martin Broken Lake did present Circle of Courage here, that was in the context of the community piece, and when our district hosted the regional Aboriginal, so this is East-West Kootenai Boundary Aboriginal Conference that we hosted, and Martin Broken Lake was a presenter. Our staff, per se, because it was a Friday, didn't really attend. It was invitational. But we started to really start thinking about, you know, how do we really look at the work that we do, and how can we frame that, you know, to deepen that understanding with students, with staff, with our community at large. So we did decide on using the Medicine Wheel framework, and we did have 2 individuals from School District 23 come and do a session with us in January. It included the principals, vice principals, some Aboriginal community members, our advisory council. And we talked about, in terms of the appreciative inquiry way, where we look at what assets do we have, you know, what are the positives that we've done in this first 5 years of our enhancement agreement that we have achieved. And what they did was a little medicine wheel teaching that had us really look at what those achievements and what those things were in the 4 directions. So, Joni, did you want to do you're good? You'll pipe in if you need to. So,
Sorry, I'm taking it away.
I'm just, yeah. So we talked about, you know, the intellectual in the north, emotional, you know, in the east, in the south, the spiritual, and in the west, the physical needs. And it was really interesting and amazing how well people understood what we were doing and putting it in that context, really helped say, okay, there has been some real deep pieces come into play this year over the last 5 years. And we still have a way to go. This one was the results of what, in the appreciative inquiry style, that our administrators, along with our Aboriginal community and our advisory council, saw were the strengths. This other one, we then held 2 student forums shortly after that one for GFSS students, and we had them carousel this activity, but we also asked them at the end, in a brainstorm way, what would you also like to see enhanced for the future in this Aboriginal Enhancement Agreement renewal? And so here's the BCSS one. Now these documents are available, so if you actually look at them later, you can really read what that does say. And then we did a parent forum, and we asked some of those students that attended the school forums if they wanted to help present, and they ran the 4 corners, in terms of the carousel activity. And it was just amazing, because when those parents came, we also had young kids, some preschoolers, primary age, some intermediate age, and we were able to, we're at the high school and leverage a place for some of the younger kids to kind of chill out and do some fun activities, but come back and forth. And we got just really amazing feedback from those parents. At the end of that, there was a high school community drum that was built this year, thanks to Joan and Walt and some other members that worked on that. And it was actually, what would you say, not initiated, but it was blessed.
It was given its voice
It was
with a ceremony.
At the end of that session. And we have just amazing photos of, the young kids sitting on parents' laps and, singing and drumming. Because the drum, probably at that point, was sitting 12 people around it, right?
Yes, I think so.
Probably
And-
more than
and,
12.
And
kids
there was an alternate group sat at the drum too.
Thank you, Joan. So now that is a school-based community drum that can be used in a variety of ways in the district, but specifically at Glenford Secondary at this point. So in terms of our enhancement agreement, you guys do have copies, so I'm not going to spend time. Here we talk about our preamble and who, our advisory members are. Whoops, there's 2 pages of that. The intro, again, just looks at the processes that we followed to get to this point. You might want to really reflect on the BAC values, so that's the Boundary Aboriginal Education Advisory Council. And these for the most part, the vast majority of these were developed before we actually had our first enhancement agreement. It was done with our advisory in the mid-1990s, 1996, 7, 8. And every year, the advisory goes through them, and really we've seen very little need to change any. 2 things that we did add this year was the first one was to honor the tradition of the peoples within the Boundary School District area, which includes the Okanagan Nation Alliance, as well as other First Nation, Métis, and Inuit peoples. And the second one was to really recognize the leadership of the Boundary All Nations Aboriginal Council, or BANAC, and the Boundary Métis Community Association as a supporting voice for the Aboriginal education in the Boundary. And that is critical, because as you know, there is no band, there is no cultural center here, but between the BANAC and the Boundary Métis group, they are the official recognized peoples that support our education piece, along with the parents of some of the kids, but for sure as a group, as 2 groups, they are recognized and honored as that. We do honor after a lot of talk with, who's claimed this territory, the Tunaha in the East Kootenays, a variety of Okanagan nations, First Nations, because I think there's 6 Okanagan First Nations that a few years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago, signed an alliance document, and it includes the Colville tribe, because a lot of them are also the interior Salish peoples, and they recognize themselves as Okanagan First Nations peoples. So there are different groups within that, but they also have an alliance which recognizes about what their commonality is, and they are trying to work together. So The Tanaha have backed off of claiming this area. As like last year, we kind of got that message clear and strong from Sophie Pierre at a session that we were at over at St. Eugene's. And really, you know, it's we don't want to get into having that discussion whether it was the Sinixt or, you know, the West Bank First Nation or the Oliver Osiris First Nation. It's really about honoring our Okanagan people in that. Not honoring, but recognizing that they were likely the closest traditional people. Here's just some general performance indicators and targets that we talked about. What are the, you know, what's the pedagogy around how we identify our performance indicators and targets? And now we get to our 4 goal statements. So the first one is our emotional goal. And so all Aboriginal students will experience a sense of belonging, self-respect, and pride of heritage. We have a rationale. We have what some of the indicators are. And then we also have an inquiry dialogue for annual reports. So we're going to ask schools to have a discussion at a staff meeting around these at least once a year. And so the question for this one is, how are we establishing and evaluating the environment that supports Aboriginal learners in developing a sense of belonging, self-respect, and pride of heritage? It's really important that school communities really own, you know, the work that's trying to happen here. This is not the area that the different strategies are in. Those are in the appendix. The ministry likes to sign enhancement agreements on the unchangeable pieces for the 5 years. The strategies can change. We do report the strategies in our annual reports, but they asked us not to have it in this section. Intellectual goal, we want all students, all partners will work towards increasing the level of academic success for students. And here we kept our reading numeracy and our 6-year completion. We were really pleased last year that our 6-year completion had really increased to that 86.7% of all our kids completing after 6 years. But that doesn't mean it's a trend yet, and so we want to make sure that that continues in a positive way along with our reading and numeracy. The spiritual goal is all Aboriginal students will increase their awareness, knowledge, and pride of their ancestry through the recognition and honoring of their culture, traditions, history, and language in an inclusive environment with all learners in the classroom. So this is saying that, you know, there is the expectation that it really is about all of our kids understanding and learning these things. And then the physical goal, all students will increase their awareness of healthy choices that enhance their well-being. And we're looking at things like student participation in activities and programs that support healthy choices and active living, and increasing student knowledge on drug awareness and support for substance abuse and misuse. And I have to tell you that the students asked for these to be in here, those 2 specific things, in terms of where we're going. In a nutshell, that's what we're hoping that you will support in principle so that we can sign that on the 27th. There was a lot of processing and dialogue. We, you know, have gone through in the spring of last year. We did go to every school staff and do a presentation and a discussion around what we had done over the last 5 years with the previous goals, and entered into a bit of a dialogue. And unfortunately, with the situation on job action this year, we weren't able to as actively include more of that input through here. But some of this was gathered at that time as well. Great.
Thanks.
Any questions?
Jill, do you have any comments? I think she said it all very well. There were, it was kind of exciting in a way to have the recognition of the Okanagan, because in our past agreement, we could only say, you know, we honor and appreciate the way that the ancestors took care of the land, because you can't refer to anybody without creating a people somewhere along the line. So it is exciting, and we have had those youth come in, and there's lots of resource people that aren't really that far away, and I think it's going to give us lots to look forward to. So I'm happy about it.
Any questions? Great work, and it was, you know, I like how it reads. It's such easy reading, and it's laid out nicely, and I can see, and I especially like your inquiry dialogue. I like that idea.
I'd like to say one more thing. I would really like to extend appreciation and thanks to Maxine. She's worked really hard, and she's been a pleasure to work with, and also the cooperation from Jeanette and Michael. It's nice. It's been good for us because many of us, would just as soon sit in the back and listen and not say anything. So, some of us have become pretty good talkers. Good talkers.
Thank you, Jim.
You guys have done a lot of work, that's for sure. Joan, didn't you say 11 out of 27 grads at BCSS last Saturday were
Yes,
of Aboriginal?
that was really exciting. And I did a little questioning today with Marcy at the high school, and she didn't have the exact figure, but Victoria did, and I think it's 17 out of 71. 17. All the Aboriginal high school students are grading. There was a couple that were really iffy, but so maybe we'll have 100%.
Yeah.